What you're seeing here today is our showroom 10-barrel system. It's a 10-barrel 4-vessel with a 2.5-barrel pilot. I'm going to work through these brewhouse automation bits from beginning to end. So to start, we're going to go to the hot and cold liquor tank autofills. This is a pretty standard automation with a hydrostatic level sensor in the bottom drain arm of the HLT and CLT. Using this, we know how much liquid level we have in each of the tanks, which then allows us to go ahead and turn off that water feed at the level that you desire. So for example, if you had a 20-barrel HLT on your 10-barrel brew house, you're going to go ahead and probably leave that half full when you go to knock out so that you can return all that hot water from the heat exchanger and not overflow the HLT. So in this case, you'd go, we're at 50, that's about where we want to be. We set our level and it'll keep that valve open until we hit it. On here, we're already there, so it never opens the valve. But if we were to go ahead and make that 75 inches, now that valve is going to open and we're going to keep filling that tank until we see 75 inches of water in there. Again, pretty basic automation step, but very important for water management and making sure you don't put excess water down the drain. This is equipped with full automation. Every valve on this thing is pneumatic and controlled. Here we have the HLT and CLT flowchart screen up. You can see as we punch around, you have accessibility to all of your pumps, and you can close each valve open and closed on this screen. This allows the operator to drive this thing entirely off the brew deck without even getting off. And then we have screens for each one of the tank sets. So here's your mashing side, mashing and lautering side, mash tun, heating jackets are there. All of these valves are on the screen. And then one more for kettle, whirlpool, and the knockout. Again, you can just see how many valves light up green when they're open, go off when they're closed. And this 15-inch screen and flowchart comes standard with all of our pneumatic valve packages. I know from my experience at commissionings and things like that, it's very nice to have all these valves tied on that one screen. No more going up and down the stairs, 300 times during the brew day. It's just right here. SPX blending valve automation, which is a setup that allows for control of flow and temperature of water to your brew house. The left-hand side, we have our temperature control loop. The SPX valve actuates up and down using compressed air to hold plus or minus 1 degree on the temperature delivered to the brew house. We often see this used with mashing and sparging to make sure you have the exact temperature you need to hit your set points. At the same time, we have another control loop for the pumps here that makes sure you can hit the exact flow rate that you want. So for example, if I want to do this, I'm going to hit a temperature, we're mashing in, I'm going to go 155, I'm going to go a flow rate of 15 GPM. I go ahead, I reset everything, and when I start that, it'll kick on and it'll control to 155 degrees and 15 GPM all through the system by itself, meaning you can go dump bags, you can go play with valves on your Lauter transfer line, you can go do other things and not worry about just staring at your temperature. From here, the next automation bit we have is our Lauter transfer. This is a slightly more complex one. It takes that blending automation and adds another step to it. So on top of the blending automation, which will be running your sparge here on the left-hand side, quantity we want, flow rate for sparge, a little bit slower, 8 GPM, and temperature will go a little hotter, 170. And that'll all happen while at the same time our lauter pump is making sure that we're transferring at a given flow rate to the kettle. So we start with the flow rate set point, we've got our first wort value, total kettle collection, and then sparge value, and then a couple more control characteristics just to make sure that we don't run away. Again, this is very valuable. You can punch in all of the numbers that you need, and then you can walk away and do some other stuff during the process. We have some bands on this Lauter ton automation as well to make sure we don't run away, max and mins, and it actually starts allowing you to gravity flow before kicking the pump on. So there's a low flow rate dead band. So you can use your gravity transfer until you don't get the flow rate you're looking for, and then it'll slowly kick the pump on to keep that same flow rate going. And I think overall the biggest benefit of this is it keeps your sparge and your lauter flow rate at the same amount so that you keep that bed height and you keep the water level above the top of the bed, making sure you get as much efficiency out of the equipment as possible. One more piece of automation around the Lauter ton is our Wort Grant level. This is a slightly more simple one. This is really just used for Vorlauf. Basically just sets, again, using hydrostatic pressure in your Wort Grant, you set the level that you want in terms of liquid height, and from there it just throttles the pump to make sure that we're not pulling too hard on the bed and we're getting a nice consistent pull to make sure we get that boil off good and clear. Next step is the auto knockout automation. This is driven by your whirlpool or kettle pump as well as the knockout pump. More or less, you just set the whirlpool pump to the speed that you want, and then the knockout pump throttles up and down to hold it to a precise knockout temperature. You can see those set points over here: temperature, flow rate, pump start speed. Pretty simple control loop, but again, allows you to walk away at times. You could get this set up, hit go, and then go to your block and bleed at the fermenter and do that, so that you don't have to watch this and the ferm at the same time. All these little automation steps really just meant to try to minimize touches, minimize back and forth trips, and just not do your job for you, but just to make it that much easier. On top of that, we've started doing some pretty complex grain handling automations for various customers, all driven around load cells under the grist case. We've had these set up with 2 to 3 silos, multiple bulk bag racks, knife gates. Each one is a little different and custom, but it's set up so that you can punch in exact recipes from all of your supply areas and have it all milled in at once so that you don't have to be there and watch. Again, just trying to save you time so you can mill one while you're brewing another. In the screen here for the grain handling, you can see that your mills and your augers are all controlled from this screen, as well as your grist case poundage. That grist case pounds is what drives everything here, and then you have knife gates controlled by there as well. As we turn things on, they light up on the screen, letting you know what's running, and the automation makes sure it steps things on in the correct order, stepping back from the grist case to your sources to make sure you don't have any clogs or overamp issues with the mill. We normally build in a 15 to 30 second lag between each step, but brewing process is 4 hours. With the automation, you can really actually mill in slower and then just dump out of the grist case, so you don't have to go as aggressively. One option on our kettles is we have a boil over sensor that is a capacitance sensor that can measure foam or liquid. It's got a couple different sensor settings, but the whole idea is if when it trips, it cuts the steam to your boil kettle so that you don't get an overboil that spills out onto the platform. It can potentially harm the brewers. So here on the screen, we have one of our standard fermenter screens. We have temperature control here on the right. That's standard across a lot of manufacturers. Set point, actual temp with a little differential in there. Valve will open and close as needed. On top of that, because we're pulling this all back to a PLC versus a single tank controller, we can go ahead and do a gradient. We're actually using this right now. We have an Italian Pilsner in this tank, and we're lagering this down from 62 degrees to 38 degrees over the course of 2 weeks. So dropping about 0.05 degrees Fahrenheit per hour, very slow. We don't have to adjust that set point down. We just punch it in once up here, and then we don't think about it for 2 weeks. Pretty cool way to get your lagers down there and really not have to be babysitting it as you go. On top of that, we also have a lagering function, and there's some timer delays, so you can go ahead and say, I want that tank to start this gradient in 2 days. Again, if it's a Friday, you want to start your lager on a Sunday, go ahead and just throw that in there. It moves it for you, and then you can use the remote monitoring to watch it as it goes. But again, just minimizing touches and things that you have to do to try to make for a more efficient day. Also built into our HMI are these trending pages where you can trend temperature of all of your tanks over time to see what issues you may be having or if there was temperature spikes. All of this stuff is available through an iPad as well. If you go with the remote monitoring package that we offer, it allows you to have full HMI control through a VPN on either your cell phone or an iPad, so that you can change cellar tank temperatures, you can check on cellar tank temperatures, you can start heating up your HLT or your CLT before you get in to try to save some time. The only things you cannot do with this is move mash tun rakes or lauter ton rakes due to safety issues if somebody happened to be in there. We don't want you starting it remotely. Really, a lot of people like this for the cellar. You know, wake up on a Saturday morning, you pitch yeast on Friday, it gives you a quick way first thing in the morning. You can just make sure things are humming along about where they need to, potentially save you a trip into the brewery. Again, this is all just built into the beauty of the Siemens PLC. Once we bring all the data there, all these automation steps are quite easy to break out. And if you have more ideas, we'd be more than happy to go ahead and spin the wheels on them and see if they would work as well. Thanks for watching, guys. We're here in our Charlotte showroom, located about 5 minutes from the Charlotte airport. So if you're in town and want to check out all these controls in person, feel free to give us a shout and come on by. Additionally, we'll be at a CVC and a bunch of other trade shows this year with full HMI that you can touch and drive and really see how it all works. And we'd be more than happy to have you come by and take a spin on it. So thanks for watching again, and see you around.